Hey, welcome into SportsBIT Betting Insight today, Thursday, April 28th. Pauly and Teddy with you on SBRpicks.com. Only one playoff game tonight in the association. We'll hit that with two other baseball games and big game breakdown. Deep dive, Spurs Thunder deserves its own segment, and that'll be the deep dive plus the play of the day. No bad beats to talk about, but as always, plenty of bad bets, and we start with Miami and Charlotte over, Teddy, and they were down 0-2. They got off the mat. They've won 3 in a row. The execution in the final 2 minutes, horrific for Miami. And they get beat at home as Lee buries the big three to give them the win.
Sure, and Miami took money. The over took money. Some of the over money was with Nicholas Batum being back in the lineup for Charlotte after missing the last couple of games. Batum didn't play particularly well, just 2 of 6 for 8 points in about 24 and a half minutes of playing time. But as a team, with him on the floor, their spacing was excellent. And Charlotte was hitting threes on a night that Miami was at, 12 of 24 from beyond the arc versus 5 of 18. But, that last 2 minutes, as you talked about, 2.5 minutes, Miami leading 88-85. They go 0 for 4 from the field with 1 turnover. This is the veteran Heat playing at home. They choked it away down the stretch.
And a superstar doesn't get the call at home. I thought Wade was fouled. He went nuts. No call, and they get, what was the take back on Charlotte down 0-2?
Yeah, down 0-2. It was about Miami in the minus 900, minus 1,000 range. Take back on Charlotte was plus 600, plus 650. Obviously, that looks like a pretty good bet less than a week later.
Yep, no surprise, the Rockets rolled over. They had 37 points at the half, and Harden had 25 of the 37. He didn't get any help, and this was hilarious. In a 30-point blowout with 2 minutes left, Bickerstaff kept Howard in the game. He gave him the middle finger there. And a SportsBIT moment of silence for Dwight Howard. His career in Houston is over. And all right, long enough with the silence. But
yeah, exactly.
But I can't. Someone, please, do not give this guy a max contract.
And did you see, I was reading some of the stuff about where they're thinking Dwight Howard might end up next year. And, of course, people love to ask me these kind of questions. Paul, like, oh, where do you think Dwight Howard will be next year? Oh, who do you think the next coach of so-and-so will be? I don't know. I'm not in anybody's head. What I think I'm pretty good at, and over the years I've been pretty good at, is trying to figure out who's going to win games by how much they're going to win by. In terms of who's going to end up where, I got no idea. You got no idea. No one except for Dwight Howard has an idea, and he doesn't even have that great an idea. But if you look at the spots that they were talking about where Dwight Howard might land, this guy's went to the finals in Orlando. He's with the marquee franchise with the Lakers and these big markets in Houston. Where's he going to be next year? Portland, Charlotte, somewhere out of the spotlight. Dwight Howard's career as an NBA superstar, yeah, that moment of silence went a long time ago. Dwight Howard's career as a Houston Rocket ended last night.
Never worked on his offensive game and improved since his time in Orlando. Never got better. Didn't do a damn thing on offense. Okay, more bad bets. Clippers. Hey, guys, knock off the 7 o'clock tip time. The arena was half empty. What was that all about? But, you knew you were in serious trouble if you had the Clippers when Lillard got off to a slow start and they still had a comfortable lead.
Yeah, I ended up putting some LA in my pocket. They led by 5 at halftime, but Lillard was, 0 for 5 from the floor in the first half, and a complete second-half domination for Portland in that game. And remember, there was an 11.5-point swing in the point spread between Game 1 and Game 2 with Paul and Griffin, where the Clips were, minus 8.5, even minus 9 at times. And then by the time it was Game 5, without Paul, without Griffin, we're talking about Portland being 2.5 3-point chalk. So that 11.5-point line move based on those two players, honestly, it was fully warranted. I was wrong with my wager on L.A. last night. And Doc Rivers, for the 3rd year in a row, Clippers are going to go home thanks to injuries in the postseason. That's a cursed franchise. It really is.
Early thoughts Friday, I think the Clippers roll over.
Yeah, no argument here.
Yeah.
This was the game that the Clips were supposed to show and play as well as they could. Portland a little bit fat and happy. Clips digging down deep. The old Ewing theory, where after your best player gets hurt, you're going to step up for a game or two. If LA was going to step up, last night was the spot. They did it for a half,
Yeah.
couldn't maintain it for the game. I do not anticipate them hanging tough in Portland, but obviously you're going to be laying a significant premium with the Blazers in that contest. You and I weren't the only ones that watched Game 5, Pauly.
And the Warriors can sit back, relax, and root for a Clippers upset because Game 7 would be Sunday. That means the Warriors would have off till Tuesday as they beat Houston, and they get to sit around and wait and get Curry healthy. Plenty of bad bets in Major League Baseball. The Nationals lose again as big favorites.
Yeah, $2 chalk, back-to-back days. And of course, the Nats have gotten off to a great start. And I don't want to take anything away from them, but when a team goes 14-4 the first 18 games and they're starting to lay $2 every night, hard to make money with those kind of teams. And Jeremy Hellickson shut them down yesterday. What about that Pirates-Rockies total, buddy? That got bet down from 11 to 10.5. What a cash. Top of the fourth inning?
Yeah, how about that?
Yeah, didn't want to be betting that game under.
No, and the problems continue with Toronto. Blue Jays lose again.
Yeah, and again, the same story with what we were talking about on yesterday's show, and I think we talked about it the day before as well. The Blue Jays just can't hit lefties this year. Shut out by Jose Quintana. And, of course, Quintana's one of these guys, we haven't talked about him a lot. Nobody talks about him a lot. This is his 50th quality start since 2014. I believe that's the top 5 in baseball. Is this guy the most underrated pitcher in baseball right now, Paul? He's certainly one of them. No one's paying any attention to him.
Yeah, good points there. You're right. And one more. Let's wrap it up with the A's. Another bad bet.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the A's were bet from pick'em up to a favorites role, and Sonny Gray didn't get it out in the third inning.
No.
Tigers can hit. And Brad Ausmus, was a little bit frustrated. They've been slumping the last couple of games. He changed up the batting order, and all of a sudden the top 4, Kinsler, J.D. Martinez, Cabrera, Victor Martinez, 6 hits, 6 runs, 7 RBIs, and Oakland, who took all the money in that game, well, they didn't get the money. If you were playing contrarian with A's Tigers, you were able to cash your ticket.
Looking forward to the deep dive. We'll get started with San Antonio and OKC. Look at that series that starts on Saturday. But up next, it's Big Game Breakdown on SportsBIT. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Visit SBRUFC.com to find the best odds and sportsbook bonuses available for UFC 197.
All right, time for Big Game Breakdown. Just one playoff game in the association. The Hawks try to close out the Celtics on the road. Atlanta is 2. 197 the total for the live odds. Go to sportsbookreview.com. No zigzag in this line. And Stevens he's a great coach, but he's catching some heat as Isaiah Thomas got hurt in a 30-point blowout. We've talked about the Hawks defense for the last month on this show. They held Boston to 38%, and they had 13 steals in Game 5. But Teddy, Isaiah has struggled on the road, but he's been terrific at home. But he needs some help from his teammates.
Yeah, he sure does. Let me talk for a minute, though, about the zigzag line or the non-zigzag line, because we're not going to call it a zigzag series. The home team has won and covered every game. That's not a true zigzag. A zigzag's back, forth, back, forth, back, forth. But note the fact, just like we were talking about earlier in the show with that Clippers Portland Trailblazers, how you want to pay attention to these subtle differences in the line. In that case, a huge difference in the line, an 11.5-point swing from Game 2 to Game 5. Here, we're talking about Atlanta now as 1.5, 2-point favorites. They've taken the money, and the Hawks line here in Boston is higher than it was in either Game 3 or Game 4. So the betting markets are certainly taking the issues with Isaiah Thomas. 1, his ankle, and 2, as you mentioned, the supporting cast for Boston just hasn't been that good. Look at the graph. Isaiah in this series got 120 points. Everybody else on the team shooting, 38%, and they combined for 350 points. So Isaiah scoring about a quarter of his team's points in the series, almost like Paul George in Indiana. You need the supporting cast to step up. But you got that Isaiah Thomas quote there about the bad ankle, because the markets are definitely concerned about him being 100%.
No, I don't. I was going to talk about Atlanta, but go ahead with the Isaiah comment.
Yeah, let me just give that quote. He said, and there were some concerns about him being forced to sit out. His quote, "I'm not going to sit out. I just tweaked it. I tweaked it in Game 4 as well in the fourth quarter, so I just tweaked it again, and it hurt right when it happened, but I came back here, and I'll be all right." So certainly from Isaiah's perspective, he's going to be just fine. and obviously averaging 24 points per game in the series thus far.
So some people might be surprised that Atlanta's the road favorite, but you go back to Game 4 and they blew a 16-point lead as they had a chance to take a 3-1 lead in the series, and they let it get away. But they haven't been exactly great in this role, Teddy. You go back to what happened the final day of the regular season when they had to beat a Washington team with nothing to play for, and they lost that game too. So even though they can close out the series, they've kind of struggled in this spot recently.
Sure. I mean, they lost their last final 3 regular season games on the road, all straight up and against the spread. They lost the first 2 games in this series on the road, both straight up and against the spread. And again, they trailed by 20 in Game 3. They blew a 16-point second-half lead in Game 4.
Yep.
The game at Washington, where the Wizards weren't even healthy. And the other games they lost, at Toronto, at Cleveland. The better teams have taken care of Atlanta on the highway. The question is right now, is this banged-up Celtics squad a better team or not? Because the markets don't seem to think so. I don't know that I think so either. I think Atlanta closes it out this evening.
Okay, to Major League Baseball, the Marlins against the Dodgers. Dodgers $1.25, 6 the total. It's Fernandez against Maeda. And you look at this graphic. How about Fernandez? Look at the splits, home and away. At home in his career, 18-1 with a 1.61 ERA. On the road, he's 5-10 with a 3.81 ERA. You also see the whip and the K's, the strikeout to walk ratio. Teddy, some bad luck and some good luck at home, but he shouldn't be 5-10 with a 3.81 on the road.
Well, I mean, it's kind of time to take this home road dichotomy a little bit seriously. As good as Fernandez has been at the Marlins Park, the guy's been a fish out of water in road games. I mean, he really has. And you talk about that ERA on the highway. And again, we're not talking about something that's ridiculous. It's 3.81. But Miami's not a great hitting team. and look, a 1.61 ERA is not supposed to get you to 18-1. 18-1 is ridiculous. And a 3.81 is probably supposed to be better than 5-10. But you wonder if the results, the actual outcomes of these games, impact his psyche. A guy's real confident when he's 18-1 at home. He's not so confident when he's 5-10, especially a young pitcher who's still, Fernandez, we all know he's got elite talent. But he hasn't been the same guy on the highway, and I think a lot of it's right up here, Pauly, right in his noggin.
No, I'll agree with you there. And if the team the same way. They go balls out at home, and then they struggle on the road. Now, what do we make of Maeda? This is incredible. You look at this graphic. 4 starts, 3-0 with a 0.36 ERA. Had a no decision in there. Runs scored, 1. Runs allowed, 1. Only guy in MLB history to do that so far. It's incredible.
Yeah, and meanwhile, of course, the Dodgers on the verge of getting swept at home by the Marlins. This is a 4-game set, and LA's lost the first 3 shutout last night. But, and that happened the last time Maeda pitched. He pitched really well at Coors, and that, to me, stood out as definitely a bet-on start for Maeda. Because that first start at Coors, man, I've seen so many guys just get lit up in that particular situation. And here's a guy that dominated the first 3, pitching in San Diego and LA, and he goes up into altitude and was every bit as good. Of course, the Dodgers lost his no decision game, but what's he, 3-0 with an 0.36?
You got it. Yep.
Through his first 4 starts of the season, and that's pretty good. Obviously, the simplest stats sometimes tell the most important story. When you score 1 run and you allow 1 run through 4 starts as a starting pitcher, you're doing something very right.
One more. Braves and Red Sox. Buckholz on the mound. Red Sox $1.95, 8.5 the total. For live odds, go to sportsbookreview.com. And no, this guy's just been horrible. When you look at this graphic, so 0-2 with a 6.33 ERA, and the graph last year, strikeouts per 9 innings, 8.5. You see what's going on this year? Walks per 9 innings. The walks are up 1.8 to 3.8. So fewer Ks, more walks. Recipe for disaster, Teddy.
Yeah, Buckholz hasn't been unlucky. He's been lousy. I lost money with him in his last start. And look, Atlanta can't hit. If he can't beat the punchless Braves tonight, it'll really be time to worry for a guy who at times has been an ace-level hurler. But yeah, fewer strikeouts, more walks, and more fly balls. That's a recipe for failure. It is worth noting that April has traditionally been Buckholz's worst month. He's a slow starter. But his current ERA is a full 1.5 higher than his previous April averages. He's not in good form, but The question is, can Atlanta do anything about it, Pauly? This team just can't hit.
No, I don't think so. This is what's going on here. This is staggering. McCutchen hits 3 home runs in one game, and the Braves have 4 as a team. You got to be kidding me. Didn't the Braves have two home runs on opening day too?
Yeah,
This is crazy.
You know, Freddie Freeman finally hit a home run in last night's blowout loss. That ended a 15-game homerless drought. That's the franchise's longest drought, not since they were the Milwaukee Braves, since they were the Boston Braves, when they went 16 games without a digger in 1946. You know, Freeman isn't seeing any pitches to hit. No one wants to throw anything because there's no one else on the roster that scares opposing pitchers. There's not a regular on the team hitting even 290. The highest OPS on the team is Nick Markakis. He doesn't even have a dinger. He's under 800 OPS. The slash line for Atlanta, they're hitting 227. Their on-base percentage is 299. I mean, it's real ugly. Dead last in average. Dead last in slugging. Number 28 in on-base percentage. The Braves are a very weak offensive ball club right now. Yeah. And again, if Buchholz can't shut this team down, this is being red flags in a major way.
Yep, sound the alarms. Up next, play of the day in the deep dive. San Antonio against OKC. We'll tackle that series coming up on SportsBIT. Betting Insight today.
Visit SBRUFC.com to find the best odds and sportsbook bonuses available for UFC 197.
All right, deep dive today. OKC and San Antonio. Game 1 on Saturday. Series price, we'll call it $3.10, but it's anywhere from $3 to $3.30 on the Spurs. Teddy, does that surprise you? Is it too high?
You know, I was a little surprised at first just because I've got so much respect for Oklahoma City, and I think they match up better with San Antonio than most teams do. But that being said, the Spurs are 42-1 at home this year. You know, I mean, that's significant.
Yeah.
And for the OKC to win this series, they're not just going to have to win once in San Antonio. Maybe we'll have to win twice in San Antonio because the Spurs are certainly capable of winning a game on the highway. So with that in mind, maybe the price tag is warranted on San Antonio as being this big of a chalk. But at first glance, I was like, wow, there's a lot of value on OKC.
So far this season, opening night, OKC won at home 112-106. The only other time they met where everyone played, San Antonio won at home 93-85. OKC was held to 91.5 points per 100 possessions, and they had more turnovers than assists. There's plenty of great matchups here, but how about Durant's offense against Kawhi's defense, Teddy?
Yeah, I mean, obviously in a series filled with great matchups, that's the one that I'm, particularly excited about watching for the next, 6 or 7 games. But look at the graphic here. I mean, this makes it so clear. Here's the matchup. Offense, Oklahoma City number 2, based on points per 100 possessions. San Antonio number 3. Spurs have the number 1 defense in the NBA. Oklahoma City above average. The Thunder, something we've talked about a lot on the SportsBIT show, the best rebounding team in the NBA. San Antonio number 3. Pace-wise, there's a little bit of a dichotomy here, but when you're talking about the hard stats, man, these teams are both outstanding in multiple categories. And that begs the question, Paul, does the winner of this series win the title? Yes or no?
Yes, they do.
You think Golden State...
Well, hold on. I thought you were going to... Oh, no. They will beat Golden State, but I think Cleveland's live.
Oh, interesting. I think Golden State's still live. And, of course, the one thing that you worry about if you are a Thunder or Spurs backer is that this game turns into a 7-game battle.
Yep.
And then whoever survives and advances is a shell of the team that they were coming into the series after the 7 games of physical play. And that is another reason why I think that that Golden State may well be live. They've got, obviously, the much easier second-round matchup. But the biggest matchup of all, Pauly, we're talking about the coaches here.
Oh, yeah. Complete mismatch. You look at the graphic, playoff record, Popovich, 250 wins, 152 losses. Donovan is 4-1. So this is a big time. And, you want to maybe bring up what happened at Florida, that he's a couple championships. But that's night and day when he's going against the big boys and one of the best in Popovich.
Well, obviously. I mean, Billy Donovan, as a collegiate head coach, he was real good. He had a pair of rings back-to-back years. In fact, the only team in the last 20-something years that's won back-to-back titles. And the fact he got them back to a title the second year always impressed me. But, of course, that Gators team had what? Joakim Noah, Al Horford, Corey Brewer, among others. I mean, they had plenty of NBA talent. But it's such a different dynamic in college when it's one and done. There are no 7-game series. There are no adjusting and the minute adjustments between each game that Donovan's going to have to do here. And obviously that gives Pop the edge. But that's certainly factored into this series price. Let's talk about this. If Leonard can't slow Durant down, and Durant has to work really hard on defense on either Leonard or Aldridge, does that take away a prime Thunder strength that's really difficult for them to make up for?
No doubt about it. I think that's going to be the game plan too. Make them work on defense and try to wear them out. And I think it's going to be a physical series. And if you can contain Durant, and if he's tired, other than Westbrook, I don't. This is not a deep OKC team. They don't have a lot of weapons. So the Spurs are loaded with a terrific bench and a lot of guys getting minutes. They didn't have to work against Memphis. I think it'll be a big key for the Spurs.
Well, you were talking about Barkley. Before we got on air, you were saying, that Barkley quote that says OKC is the best bench in the league.
He's out of his mind. Doesn't even watch games sometimes. You make an asinine comment like that. What do you mean OKC's got the deepest bench? That's lunacy. When you look at Golden State and you look at San Antonio. I bet the San Antonio bench could make the playoffs.
And a case can be made that with Popovich coaching, the Spurs bench might well be a 500 team. And Oklahoma City's bench doesn't necessarily have that depth, but they get a lot of production off that bench, particularly when it comes to low post play. I wouldn't sell that Thunder bench short. What about the playoff history between these two teams? Because we've seen two classic series between the Spurs and the Thunder in recent seasons, Pauly.
I remember 2012 well. The Spurs were on a roll. They had won 20 in a row and won 31 of their last 33 games. They had a 2-0 lead in the Western Conference Finals, and then Ibaka and Cephalosha couldn't miss for 4 games. Brooks made a couple of adjustments, and they won in 6, made it to the finals and lost to the Heat. And that was a hell of a series. It looked like San Antonio would win it that year, but OKC got hot and won 4 in a row. And how about 2014, Teddy?
Yeah, the home team won the first 5 games in that series, and the Spurs won in overtime at Oklahoma City in Game 6 on their way to the title. You remember that game? That was the Boris Diaw game.
Yes.
When he scored his season high, his career high, whatever it was, in Game 7 or Game 6 on the road at OKC. Worth noting that the winner in that series in 2014, the winner went 6-0 against the spread. So if you just picked the straight-up winner, you cashed every ticket. In the 2012 Western Conference Finals, it was OKC cashing 5 times in 6 ball games.
Feels like a classic. Could this go 6 or 7? Could it go 7?
I would be shocked if it goes less than 6. Nobody's winning this series 4-1.
Okay.
I would be surprised if it wasn't 2-2 after 4 games. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. All right. I'm with you on that one. All right. Money time. Where are we going for the play of the day?
Well, we talked about it a little bit earlier in the show. I know the Dodgers have had a rough series against the Marlins, losing the first 3 games. I don't mind laying a little bit of price with LA looking to avoid that 4-game home sweep. And, of course, it's not just Kenta Maeda early. They also have a fresh Kenley Jansen late. And Jansen has not been scored on this season. 11 strikeouts, only 3 hits, and 1 walk allowed. Yeah, let's fade Jose Fernandez. Give me the LA Dodgers minus $1.25. That's the play of the day.
Excellent. Huge show tomorrow. 3 big playoff games. We'll run that down. Weekend preview and the NFL draft. We'll recap that and look ahead to the second round as well on SportsBIT. Betting Insight today.